Hey, everybody, for those of you who really missed Sean Martin last week because he was on vacation, Sean is back from vacation. Sean, how was vacation?
Vacation was awesome. Big time shout out to Joe Calderon, because I saw some family this weekend from the Italian side. Joey Calzone. Appreciate him pinching in. Enjoyed the show.
He would really appreciate you calling him that. Actually, I think his Twitter handle is Joey Calzone 23 or something. So you're right on topic. You are watching M&M&M Across the Board. Sean Martin is back. Eric McDowell is here once again. I am Ashley Miller. Mr. McDowell has worked in collegiate and professional sports communications, including at NCAA's all three levels of schooling and in the NBA. Mr. Sean Martin is a freelance sports writer for the Times-Union here in Albany, New York, and author of Dear Liam and Noah, Letters from Daddy, which you can find on Amazon. I'm Ashley Miller, sports anchor reporter for the NBC station News Channel 13 in Albany, New York. And we can be found, if you are watching us, we can be found on Apple, Spotify, YouTube, and Twitter. Our Twitter handle, MMMATB1. This is week number 5 for us, right, guys?
Number 5.
Week number 5. We will go across the board at the end of the show, which is one of our favorite parts. But our big topics of the week, college football preview, picks. Giannis Antetokounmpo, is he the good guy we've been waiting for in all of sports? And the Coyotes and their long documented history of stadium struggles, financial struggles, the whole deal. Mr. Eric McDowell will touch on that. Sean, let's start with you.
Hey, here's the best news. Beginning this week, we have football through the Super Bowl. Maybe with a bye week between the two, but it's time. The colleges are going to do the honors this week. No real big marquee matchups this week, unless you're a Nebraska fan. Go Huskers. The game against Illinois was supposed to be played overseas, but got redirected to Champaign on Saturday due to COVID. But hey, it's time to kick the ball off. I'm pretty excited. Looking at an overview of the whole season, it's going to be, you got a lot going on off the field with Texas and Oklahoma and the SEC, and now a possible alliance between the ACC, Big 12, and Pac-12. Not sure how that's going to look, but it'll be interesting. But I'm kind of looking ahead. What are the storylines this year? Who are going to be the teams at the end of the year? I thought I'd bring up a few today, see what you guys think. Projecting end of the season, my playoff teams. Yeah, you got to pick Alabama. Every year I try and find a reason to not pick Nick Saban. They just reload. They don't rebuild. They reload. He's got blue chippers. He doesn't even have to recruit. He can sit by the pool or sit on a boat if he wants to. The 5 stars are still going to show up. You got to put him in, mostly because of this. They could stub their toe and lose a game during the year, but because they're Alabama, a one-loss Alabama team's going to the playoff. There's no way around it. It's going to happen. I like Ohio State. I detest Ohio State personally, but I don't think there's anybody in the Big 10, Big 12, or whatever they're called, that can knock them off. Ryan Day has done a great job picking up from Urban Meyer and running that show. Again, they're replacing a quarterback, which will be a challenge. But again, there's so many blue chippers on that team. I don't see them losing in the Big 10. My sleeper, Iowa State. Mm-hmm. If they can beat Oklahoma on Week 12 in Norman, and I think they can. You talk about the Iowa State's coach always getting talk about NFL possible coach. They're going to continue to get better. They got to keep her. I don't know how much longer to be able to hold on to him. But Mr. Campbell's got things going out there in Ames. And then I like Georgia. I like Georgia, and I'll touch on them in just a minute. 2 SEC teams make sense. They kind of got it going together a little bit last year. For the national title, I'm going to go on record here, early August. A lot can happen, a lot of injuries, whatnot. I'm going to pick the Bulldogs to beat Alabama in the title game. Revenge from a few years ago when Tua got off the deck and rallied Alabama to the overtime win. Heisman Trophy, I'm going to pick JT Daniels. Liked him at USC. It was a big transfer over to Georgia. He got his feet wet in Athens last year. I think he's going to step up, have a big year, win the Heisman, win the national title. And if you're looking for a real dark horse, more so than Iowa State, they're top 8 team in the rankings. Watch out for Cincinnati. If they can beat Notre Dame, Cincinnati's a team that can do some damage this year. They got a lot of good things going on. So, but again, I'm looking forward to it. College football's awesome. I love my NFL Sundays, but I'll touch on it later. My college football Saturdays are absolutely sacred, and they're just a joy to watch because you always get the best games on TV.
Well,
Okay?
Sean, can I pick Alabama to win the NFC East?
You probably could.
They probably could. Mm-hmm. Now, what's interesting, Bryce Young, freshman's only thrown 22 passes. But if Saban isn't concerned, I don't think anybody else is either. I don't think Saban and concern are two words that go together, except when he talks to the press. Now, he's got a great offensive line, and it's great for a young quarterback to have a great offensive line because you don't see young QBs in the NFL have great O-lines. So I think the kid will be fine. The defense is loaded. As you said, there's talent all over the roster. It's the same old. And everybody in Alabama is just fine with that because no other sport exists. I still like Clemson. I think it's interesting that they don't have that gimme game. They have to open with Georgia. You know, there's always that marquee game early on because usually teams open with somebody like guaranteed, here's your check. We'll play Atlantic Pacific U, D1, 2, 3, whatever to pad up. But they also have a dangerous defensive line, solid QB and DJ. I won't even attempt pronounce his last name. And my sleeper is Central Florida. And that's because of Gus Malzahn. He was a big offensive guy at Auburn, a little messy there at the end, but you knew he'd get a good opportunity. And some of them get opportunities at a lower level. But this is a club to watch. They've got a great offense. He's always had a great offense. And I think Central Florida could be there at the end. And I do like your pick on Cincinnati as well.
Yeah, Cincinnati's got one of its highest rankings maybe ever to start the year. So that's an interesting one for me. The thing that always sticks out is like when I look at Clemson, when we're looking at Bama, you have starting to be legitimate teams who could give them a run. There is no one in the ACC who will hold a candle to Clemson at any point in the season. So if they don't lose a non-conference game, they will march to the college football playoff without, one iota of doubt. That team, again, ever since Brent Venables has been there, which has been a long time now, that defense has been formidable. And obviously a guy like Trevor Lawrence helps, but DJ Uiagalelei, we saw him last year. He's pretty darn good. So I think they're going to be just fine. It's just shocking to me that you're looking at the other side of the conference. What is UNC or Miami going to give that team a run for its money? Please. Bama has a better chance of losing a conference game because they play in the SEC versus Clemson playing in the ACC. Bama, this is crazy. You write down the list of names that they lose, and this is every year. They have multiple first-round draft picks, but Mac Jones, Najee Harris, Devontae Smith, Jalen Waddle, Alex Leatherwood, these are guys who are first-round picks. They're gone, and yet no one is worried about what this team is or is not going to do. I think Bryce Young, like you said, he's young, but hasn't thrown a lot of passes. And still they're talking about this receiving core that they already have potentially being better than this year's draft class of receivers 4 years down the line, which it's almost impossible. How does that even make sense?
Yeah, go back to Clemson. I think the difference with them, the reason I don't have them in there, I think they're going to get beat by Georgia. And that ends up, it's hard to say a season opener is a knockout game, but it's a tiebreaker. Mm-hmm. Potentially, if that's only Clemson's only loss and Georgia gets tripped up once on the SEC, who are you going to go with? You got to go with the head-to-head order. That's the only reason I have Clemson out because their defense is solid as usual. And Ashley, credit to you. I'm not going to say their names either. You got the Clemson quarterback and you got Giannis's last name in the first 8 minutes of the show, and you nailed it. Kudos to you.
It's sort of my job.
She's a TV person.
I have to do highlights, so you have to be able to say Uiagalelei.
Yeah, as the writer guy, I just cut and paste if I have to put him in a story. I don't have to worry about it.
We do what we have to do.
And as a PR person, I just do spell check on our roster. Right. Very good, Ashley.
Yeah. Guys, another team that I think is interesting this year is Texas A&M. I think Jimbo Fisher has done a really good job. Obviously, when you were in the same division as Alabama, people maybe aren't going to talk about you as much, but they've get Bama at home this year, which is always if you're going to have to play them, you might as well play them at home. 9-1 last year, 8-1 in the ACC. And they're just your typical Jimbo, grind it out, move the chains. Their time of possession is really good, very deliberate. They're replacing a guy like Kellen Mond, who I believe is a 4-year starter. If not a 4-year, then he's a 3-year starter. So again, their biggest question is at quarterback, but they have receivers and they have running backs all coming back. Their defense was number 1 in the SEC last year, 317 yards per game, 22 points per game allowed. So if you bring back that and you can plug in a quarterback that can get the job done, they're a legitimate threat. We'll see how much of a legitimate threat to maybe give, I'm not going to say beat Alabama, maybe give Bama a run for their money?
They could take down Alabama. Jimbo Fisher's got a good thing going there, and they kind of have built it since he got there. He's really brought that program up. I think a great game to look forward to, not this weekend. Again, there's no big marquee matchups, but September 4, the Big Ten's got it going on early on. You got Penn State at Wisconsin. Penn State lost their first few games last year. They ended the year on a winning streak. Wisconsin just always seems to be the same, and they are tough, and they run the football, and they play good defense. And I know that. I mentioned Ohio State earlier. Wisconsin's in the same boat. Folks, you got to understand, every time I see those teams playing the Huskers, they're putting up 60 and 70 points on the board. It's a little rough. Now, Huskers played well last year against Ohio State, but Wisconsin is another team. They're sneaky, they're steady, and they don't usually beat themselves. They might have some closer games throughout the year, but they usually find a way to win them. Losing Jack Cohen to Notre Dame is going to be maybe a step back for them a little bit. For the Irish, they get an experienced quarterback, especially with that opener down in Tallahassee with Florida State. And Notre Dame, again, I'm getting kind of tired of seeing them in the playoff because they get there and they just get steamrolled. But Brian Kelly wins his games, and if you win your games and you're at Notre Dame, you're going to be playing in January.
I know I could get Longhorns up my nostrils, but I don't think Texas is going to be anything this year because, they open with Louisiana Lafayette, 23rd ranked team, brand new offense trying to be put in play by a new coach with Herman gone, and their quarterback situation is just all over the place right now. So I don't think Texas will be a factor, maybe top 20, but it's hard to figure that Texas in football is not going to be as solid as we're used to seeing. It's just too many question marks in Austin.
Yeah, I also just think, though, the Big 12 to me never, I get it, Oklahoma's the best team in the Big 12, but they never blow me away. And I know people are saying they have the best defense in the Big 12. Well, guess what? The Big 12 doesn't play defense. So
no,
the
they
defense
don't.
isn't that good.
Yeah,
so I always think, I wouldn't be surprised if they're going Big 12 title or bust in Texas. And I know it's Sarkisian's first year, but if you can just kind of throw a little bit of magic in there, it's not like trying to make your way into the SEC or even the Pac-12. It's a conference that's very winnable in a lot of ways. So I do think Texas gets a little bit interesting. I don't think they get there. But also when we talk about Notre Dame, this is so funny. I was reading up on them, and last year, great defense. It was called, they had a great defense. 344 yards per game that they gave up, which was, quote unquote, skewed by their Clemson and Alabama losses. Hold on a second. Skewed by their Clemson.
Count.
So basically you're saying their defense was really good when they played teams that were just okay, but their defense was no good when they played teams that are actually college football playoff caliber teams. Well, the point is to be just as good as those other teams. So their defense isn't any good. They were good against some bad teams, and they were bad against the best teams. That's where every year Notre Dame has still lacked to take that next step. They get to the college football playoff, and then they get it handed to them. And that's why I think, like you said, Sean, people are sick of Notre Dame because they've yet to get the job done when it matters most. I would love to see them get a big-time regular season win against one of those teams this year, and then get the job done for once in the college football playoff.
Yeah, look, and it's hard for me to bash Notre Dame. I grew up in a Notre Dame family, right? My grandmother, 99, she'll be 100 in March. She still watches Irish football every Saturday. I went to a Notre Dame-Nebraska game 20 years ago. When I called her, she put me on hold and said, "What color are you wearing today?" I said, "I'm wearing red, but I have a carnation on." I didn't, but I said.
Can we get your grandma on the show? Let's tape some, I'm going to tape some phone video of her on the show.
She's a pit bull. She's a feisty one. She still works. She reads to children in schools. Anyway, yeah. So Notre Dame's awesome. So it's hard for me to say that, but it is what it is. And they're not on the level of the top teams. They can hang with teams during the year. They play Clemson, can hang with them, but not against the Alabamas. The interesting part about last year, the Coastal Carolinas, and just how the parity's starting to go through college football and the non-Power 5 teams, Cincinnati, everybody's starting to step up a little bit. You chalk that up to, I think, just the growth of the high school sports and the focus on football. You're getting athletes heading to college football more prepared to play the game. You see more impacts from the younger players, and it's translating. So you talk about A&M losing Kellen Mond, you get a lot of experience. these kids are now getting there, and especially if they redshirt for a year, they're more prepared. So Jimbo Fisher might have an easier time filling that spot.
And this is one of the reasons, and I get it, we could talk college football playoff expansion till we're blue in the face, but the parity that you're talking about and the teams like Coastal Carolina and Central Florida, this is why I am pro college football playoff expansion, because I think, listen, if we're going to keep giving Notre Dame a 4th spot in the college football playoff, why would we not give a team like a Coastal Carolina or a Central Florida or a Cincinnati? Why would we not give them a freaking chance to at least prove that they don't belong? Prove you put them in and prove, you know what, they're not there yet. We're giving that chance to another team. It's just, you're not even getting, in a lot of ways or in a lot of seasons, you're not even getting 4 conference champs in there. Like, you're getting a second team from the SEC over a Power 5 conference champ like the Pac-12. Well, make it 8, put all of them in, and then add in another SEC team, add in a team like Cincinnati from the American, add in someone else to give them a chance to prove that they can hack it.
We saw this years ago. This isn't recent either, as you both know. We saw the Boise State ran the table. It's just, what do you tell these kids, the coach in that school, that you're not up here yet? Mm-hmm. Well, they ran the table. I don't like the argument either about, the league is weaker. We've heard that in basketball. So I'm sorry. If you go 30-0 in men and women's basketball, you should be in the tournament. And they take 64. But in football, what are you supposed to tell those kids in that program? Because how are they going to recruit if they get in there, they run the table, and they knock off somebody big, as we saw Boise did years ago, and they still don't get in? So I agree with you, Ashley. And in many ways, Sean, this could make a case for that new NCFL that they're all looking to do. You guys all want to get together, take all the TV money, and just beat each other up. Go right ahead and let the rest of the world play with the division. I mean, you could do that.
Look,
and even if they get in, go ahead, Sean.
Go ahead. No, go ahead, Ashley.
Even if they get in and get their butts kicked, you know what? Who cares? They've earned the right to go get their butts kicked. Yeah. They get the national spotlight. Maybe that helps them get recruiting. And then maybe a few years down the road, they get to that level. Like Notre Dame gets its butt kicked all the time. You know what I mean? It's just like, if you're going to let a school like that get its butt kicked, let someone else do it too.
Look, they'll get their chance. You know why? I mean, yeah, it's a dollar bill. I get it. I'm a little light coming off vacation. But, yeah, they'll get their chance because the money's going to be there and they're going to expand that tournament. But you talk about some of these teams that have dream seasons. UCF had that great year, the unbeaten year a couple years ago. They beat Auburn in the bowl game, and that's awesome for them. That was their Super Bowl. Mm-hmm. The downside with a matchup like that is for Auburn, yeah, it's the Sugar Bowl, but for Auburn, the Sugar Bowl is not the playoff. Mm-hmm. So you're not going to get, and that's the variable with bowl games. You have teams that don't have an incentive and they're off for a month. That's why the tournament would be awesome to see how they do. I think you got to go to 8. I'd like it to go to 16. Don't tell me that the kids aren't going to be in school. Yes, they will. If there are even classes during the winter break, they are in school. They practice. They might travel a day or two before the game. They don't miss any time compared to the basketball players and some of those sports that play midweek games. It'll get there. It'll get there, and it'll be interesting to see how they do once they do get there.
Yep. Yeah, or you give buys, however you want to work it. You know what I mean? It's got to happen.
Yeah, and just to finish up my point, the hard part about some of those teams jumping over the top teams in the rankings is once the rankings get into people's mindset, Alabama, Ohio State, Clemson start, Georgia, Oklahoma, even if those teams lose, how far do you drop them down? 9 spots, 8 spots, 5 spots down to the top 10? That as teams pick off, they end up emerging. So it's hard for some of those teams ranked in the mid-20s, late teens to make that run. You almost have to go unbeaten. And then even sometimes if you have a close win, you may not get any favor over a higher ranked team that lost you. That's why rankings are a good topic of conversation. I think they're a general waste of time until mid to late October because they don't really mean anything. You're still learning a lot about teams, especially the first month or so. You're not seeing a lot of big marquee games either. You get a lot of patty cakes.
And I know the argument is always if you expand, teams are still going to get left out. Yeah, no kidding. Unless you include everyone, teams are still going to get left out. But again, if you can get your Power 5 champs all in, add a couple SEC teams, and then throw in 2 other champs from some of the smaller conferences, at least you're including the little guy. Right now, the little guy is nowhere in the conversation.
Exactly.
Sean, last piece is remember come January, let's talk about bowl games in December because that'll be a whole very fun discussion.
Yeah, and that's the other thing, though. Like, if you're not the top 4, well, then your best players don't even play in bowl games. They don't care about bowl games anymore. Yeah, so forget it. Like, you know what I mean? It's unless you're in the college football playoff, you're not in the playoffs at all.
Yeah, the playoff has kind of made the argument against the playoff is it would make the bowl games irrelevant, and they kind of have. They're a reward, right? They're a reward for teams for a nice season. And some of the guys you just said, actually, they opt out. But it's also a chance for some of the younger players to get out there and play on a bowl game stage. They get some swag for the effort, nice vacation. Again, it's reward for the kids. And if they're not in the tournament, then it's a glorified exhibition in some circumstances.
Yeah.
But hey, M&M across the board. I want to thank everybody for joining us again this week. We can be found on Apple, Spotify, YouTube, and Twitter at M&M&ATB1. Ashley, do you have your pronunciation guide back out for your topic of the week?
I'm ready to crush it, guys. I love, first of all, I love a good, long, complicated name like DJ Uiagalelei. So let's go with Giannis Antetokounmpo. 26 years old, guys. He just keeps reemerging in the news, and every time he does, the more and more I like him. So I thought, you know what? I want this to be my topic this week because this is a guy who right now is the face of the NBA. And I've made it clear, listen, I understand that if it were not for injuries to the Brooklyn Nets and to the Los Angeles Lakers, this guy would not be an NBA champ. But guess what? He is. And I think a lot of people are grateful for it because he is one of the most likable people in all of sports, not just the NBA, in all of sports. And I think what makes him so endearing, first of all, his press conferences are phenomenal. He's up there like a 16-year-old kid who's doing it for the first time, who's having a good time, who's kind, he's polite to reporters, he's polite to other teammates. And yet, I would dare to say he still has that killer mentality. He's still one of the very few players in the league who you could compare to. I'm not going to compare him like his physical gifts, basketball gifts, to a Michael Jordan or a Kobe Bryant. But he has the Mamba mentality, as they call it. And I'll let you guys kind of sound off on that. I'm not going to go into everything I think about him just yet. But he's got the killer mentality, and he obviously has some very unique skills from his length and what he showed 50 points in the final game to win them their first title in 50 years. Not so bad.
Eric, go ahead.
I think it's a wonderful topic, Ashley. I really do. I remember the first time I heard about him was in a 60 Minutes piece. I think it was with Steve Croft. And they introduced him and told his story from the beginning and the challenges and then about how he came into playing basketball. And what I think is the best thing for the NBA, they need somebody that has a future. Okay, they need somebody like him who is in a smaller market in an adopted city. I am thrilled beyond belief that he stayed there. Okay, and maybe it was a year early that they won the title, but there was no question that there would be consideration that here we go with another NBA star looking for his buddies to go play. And you know what? He says he owes Milwaukee. He didn't owe Milwaukee anything, but that's the way he is. Class act, and to buy into the Brewers, if that doesn't make a statement about how you're committed to a city. So if anybody's been to Wisconsin, the people there are just wonderful. You know, we complain when it gets to be 15 degrees. You know what? It could be 30 below there and they still smile. Yep. Might be the awesome cheese they have in the brats. But my point is that he stayed in Milwaukee and look what he's accomplished already. And I agree, Ashley, he's 26. He could be there the rest of the time. And I've never seen Kareem. You know, Kareem is very poetic and very opinionated to some people not like this. But what he had to say about Giannis, how proud he was, it's just a remarkable story. And he is the face of the NBA. And when LeBron retires, congrats, great career. But this is the guy that you want out there. You want him with the kids. You want to promote him as a person as well as a player in a wonderful city. Couldn't be a better story.
Yeah, what I like about Giannis is a couple things. Number one, I know when he gets to the free throw line, I can leave the room, go get a soft drink, and get back and not miss anything. Okay, and good for him for thinking of me. Yeah. I appreciate that. What I like about his commitment to Milwaukee is kind of Mahomes. Same with Mahomes, buying part of the Royals after he signed his big contract. the league is better off with better teams in LA, New York, Chicago, and that's great. But you know what? You have to have people to play against. You talk about Major League Baseball, the salary cap, the Dodgers way over, the Yankees over, but you need opponents that can at least be competitive. You don't want to have a 4-team league. To me, any league that has a number of teams that could win a championship at the start of the year, the better you are. Okay, the NFL with its parity, you never know what's going to happen year over year. Division winners don't make the playoffs the next year on a consistent basis. In the NBA, you're now getting that. I enjoyed the Milwaukee Phoenix final more than any other in recent years because it was something new. Mm-hmm. I enjoy the Lakers. I enjoy watching them. I enjoy now rooting against them. I like the Celtics. I like some of those teams. Even New Jersey, we get to see all their games here. They're an interesting team to watch, but it's also nice to see other teams in smaller markets with emerging stars, and you get to learn more about these players. You know, hockey does not have a lot of teams that can win a championship at the start of the year. The NBA is a little different because you got 5 guys on the court. Most of your better players play the better part of the game. So it's good to see this, and I love seeing the commitment to a city like Milwaukee. They hadn't won it since, was he Kareem or even Lou Alcindor at that point? I think he was Kareem.
It was Lou.
He was Lou in 71, right? Okay, so yeah, and good for them. It was just fun to watch, and then you get to see their parade and their celebration. And not that everybody wants to spread the wealth, but LA's kind of been there and done that.
Yep, and I think, guys, it's so funny. This guy is from the country of Greece, born to immigrant parents. The first time he ever saw baseball was when he was 18 years old. His first day in the city of Milwaukee was the first time he had ever seen baseball. And initially the story was that his team was trying to push him to invest in a European football, a European soccer team. Thank God he didn't do that, because I don't think that team would have had appreciated it quite as much as the city of Milwaukee does in his investment in the Brewers. His quotes are like you said, the city of Milwaukee invested in me. They gave him a 5-year, $228 million Supermax extension. That was their investment in him. He then said, this is me returning the investment in the city of Milwaukee, letting them know I'm supporting the other teams. I'm supporting the community. I'm supporting other sports. I'm supporting the city as a whole because of what they've done for me. And I think it's so refreshing to see like an appreciation, like a real appreciation. And listen, I get it. It's different. When they tell stories about he used to sell things on the streets of Greece. That was how they made money. He comes from a different lifestyle than I think a lot of obviously American basketball players do, who are a little more maybe spoiled. He's super appreciative of what he has. And just the stories that come up that make you smile, like from his rookie year, I believe it was, when he got his first paycheck, he went to an ATM, sent all the money back home, literally all of it, and didn't have a single dollar to get back to the arena. So he had to hitch a ride with a couple of fans. They saw him like running down the street, picked him up in their car and brought him back to the arena because he was so excited to send his family money. That's the type of guy he is. The interaction that we saw, the video of him, it was at a signing a few years ago. An 11-year-old girl came up and gave him some drawings that she made and gave them to him. And he came around the table and like hugged her and took pictures with her. Him giving sneakers to fans, and we see a lot of guys doing that too. The day after he won the title, the video from Chick-fil-A, like that video is mind-blowing. First of all, he asks the woman at Chick-fil-A permission to shoot this video. I'm convinced there's not another person in the NBA who would have had the forethought to think, ma'am, are you okay if I shoot this video? And he says, I have a lot of followers. Like there's 500,000 people watching this or something absurd. He asked the woman if he could shoot the video. Like this guy, he's the guy you want your daughter to marry. He's all of it. And that's why I think it's just so heartwarming. And I think, you see him crying. It was like a Jordan moment. You see him crying on the court as soon as they won that NBA title. And he's soft and he's emotional and he's polite, but he does have that killer mentality. And all he had to do was say, nope, I'm not joining a super team. I'm going to do it right here in Milwaukee.
It's about happiness, Ashley. I think from what he grew up with is that he's waking up every day and he's not taking anything for granted. And too many pro sports athletes, and no offense, but NBA in particular, the head gets bigger. And it's hard not to say, you know what, it's about the ring, but it's also about this. We've seen that. But here is a guy who is grateful for the opportunity he has. He's in the perfect market for it. I mean, Milwaukee people don't boo I know a fellow that's from Wisconsin that moved here, and he actually talked me into, oh my God, going to Yankee Stadium to see his Brewers. And he just said in Milwaukee, everybody just appreciates things. Now, Packers are a little different breed, but he said this is the perfect guy in the perfect city for this. And I could see him all the way down throughout his career. Too many of us in sports media, sports PR, we're like athletes in the fact that we think the grass will be greener. This job may be better. That may be better. And I can tell you personally that that's not always the case. And I think he already gets it. Just a tremendous human being, and what a wonderful story that the NBA must market all the time.
Yeah, the other Luka down in Dallas, he's got a good thing going there. Yep. Hopefully they can get him some help. He's a great player. Great player, can do it all. And you look at some of these younger players who might become the next wave of faces of the game. I think of Zion Williamson down in New Orleans. Now that's a situation where if he tries to find his way out, I can't blame him, because I don't think they know what they're doing down there.
Nope.
Right? They might wave some money at him, but you got to have a plan.
Yeah.
Milwaukee had a plan. They got Chris Middleton. They got some other players. They made it enticing for him to stay. But some of these franchises are on a chronic reboot every 2 years, kind of like the New York Jets. But okay, we're talking about basketball. I just had to throw that in there because it's true. So you look at New Orleans. You don't know what they're doing down there. There's just some other franchises that, do they have any concept as to what they're doing and how to build? You're going to make mistakes. Charlotte's another. You're going to make mistakes. But Milwaukee's got a nice plan, and now they have a title to go with it, and it looks like a little bit of a future for a few years.
Yeah, and I don't. We talked about this after when we were talking about the NBA. I don't think that the Bucks have done themselves any favors this offseason so far. I think they've lost a lot more than they've gained, like losing PJ Tucker. They've lost a lot of pieces. But at the end of the day, nobody expects them to go out there and repeat. We've already talked about rankings. Everyone in their top rankings has Brooklyn number 1, Lakers number 2. They're not talking about the Bucks going out to repeat. So I don't think that the pressure is there for that. I think the pressure is now off because he's won the first title in 50 years. And now he can go about playing every year, maybe trying to get some of those other guys. I know he doesn't want to build a super team, but now people are going to want to go play with him. You know what I mean? You've proved you can win a title with what you have there already. People maybe now want to go play with a Chris Middleton. And if you can get a third guy or maybe a guy who's even more of a number 2 than Chris Middleton to come play, well, now you have your own super team, but it's in Milwaukee. So people aren't going to knock you for going to join a super team. You're creating one in a small market city if you can do it. And I think he can. I don't know that it's going to be a team that can compete with a team like LeBron, AD, and Russell Westbrook. But I think if you get one more piece there, you're right back in the mix, and you've done it organically, which is kind of cool. Well,
they still have Drew Holiday, who came up with some big defensive stops, can facilitate the ball on offense. The problem with teams like the Lakers and even Brooklyn, I almost call them New Jersey again, they're old. They're getting older. And, what's LeBron going to play next year? 65 games, 60 games. They got to budget the workload a little bit. Should that bother him in playoffs? Probably not, but you never know. Injuries happen. Even if you're trying to monitor a guy's performance time and on-court minutes, they get hurt. Ashley, you're going to find out in probably 15 years or so, but your bones start creaking a little bit as you get on into your late 30s or early 40s, right, Eric?
Keep going.
It's a little keep going. It's a little tough there, so we'll see how they manage it. But yeah, it is what it is. But I love the story of the younger teams coming up and making some noise for themselves.
Yeah, and Luka, you made a great comparison, Sean. I think Luka is another really good. He seems like a really good guy. Maybe not, doesn't like to be in the spotlight quite as much as Giannis, but all of his interactions with people seem very positive, with fans, with the media, and he's obviously a super talented guy. So I hope that Dallas kind of realizes that Milwaukee has kind of set the bar for small markets maybe, and prove that it can work, that now they got to build around Luka to give him a chance to compete with the best and maybe win a title in Dallas. Because otherwise, if he doesn't win one, his contract expires, he's out. And that's a long ways away. But
hopefully he does. I like Mark Cuban. I like when he wins. I think he's better for the league than he's not. So
he is. You're absolutely right.
All right. Well, hey, M&M Across the Board. Thanks again for joining us. Twitter handle M&M&M-ATB1. We can be found on Apple, Spotify, YouTube. A big week in the desert. Mr. McDowell, what do you think?
An arena that doesn't want a pro team. Wow. Now, last week, Glendale, Arizona, not too often in the discussion of America's greatest pro sports cities, booted the Phoenix Coyotes, Arizona Coyotes, from the Gila River Arena, effective after the season, thus after 18 years in the facility. So I guess the contract can no longer say a river runs through it. Previously, they played at America West Arena in downtown Phoenix with the Suns. Been to that arena, very nice place. There is another option, the Veterans Memorial Coliseum. When you hear an arena called that, you know it's old. This one opened in 1965. Not sure how many suites they have. Now, the new owner of the Coyotes says he is committed to staying in Arizona. Here was Glendale's reason. They said each game drove $12,000 in sales compared to concerts that drive $25,000. A concert goer spends $58 compared to $28 for a Coyotes game. $28, as you guys know, get you a dog, beer, and a keychain. Now, this is odd. Teams like the Dodgers or the Colts left the city because they couldn't get a new arena or stadium, some in the middle of the night. The Supersonics in Seattle were bought by a person who said he was committed to keeping the team there if Key Arena would be updated, which it wasn't, and the team took a young Kevin Durant to Oklahoma City. So how many times have we seen an actual arena and city boot a pro franchise? I promise I won't sing, but it makes me think of the song by OMC. How bizarre, how bizarre.
How bizarre! How bizarre! Now that's going to be stuck in my head all day. This is this situation is so bizarre. For how you ask how bizarre, it's so bizarre, and I think it's just because of like I said, it's a well documented struggle all the way from the days in Winnipeg. They've then come to Arizona, where it's supposed, you make that kind of move because you hope it's going to be better. But this hasn't been good from the get go. Like 2001. Elman decides to bring them. They can't reach a deal in Scottsdale, so he brings them into Glendale. But Glendale, the city of Glendale, they borrowed $183 million for that arena. Well, no kidding. Like, if they can't make their money back, they're saying right now, like, when you're paying us, we then give that money, the owner or the ASM who owns the arena then gives that money back to the city of Glendale because they're paying off that $183 million in debt. Well, yeah, if you're only making $28 or whatever it was that you said, which I find hard to believe. Like, don't they average like 12,500 fans or something?
They do pretty well.
Like, what, how much is a ticket to get in there? Even if it's $30 times 12,500 plus concessions, I know you're paying people, but that seems it seems like you're not making exactly what you should.
And you're going to find 41 concert dates on top of it?
Yeah. And maybe it's the whole concert thing is interesting because it's a year round thing. Like, you can bring, well, in Arizona, anything's year round, but it's a year round thing. You could bring concerts to the Times Union Center in Albany, to MSG when there aren't sports teams playing. You're a little more flexible. So I understand the argument of you have the potential to make more money on concerts. It's a little more flexible in terms of dates. You can do it all year round. I get that. I just have a hard time. I'm not sure things are being run well there. That shouldn't surprise anyone. But if you're not making more money than that, something's going wrong.
Yeah, the cynic in me wants to look at the city of Glendale and say, whoa, what was that? Okay. I'm not buying it. Yeah. I think this is it's more politics. Mm-hmm. The dynamic here is that the city has flipped the script and they're the ones making the demands on the team. Usually, we said the Sonics put in the demands, gave them a reason to leave, and they did. I know the Coyotes owe them a couple $100,000. I think it's just the city of Glendale basically saying, you got nowhere else to go anytime soon, mm-hmm. right? Force their hand. I think they're probably trying to negotiate a better deal for themselves. Hopefully it works out, because though the success has not been there on the ice for the Coyotes, I think one deep playoff run, it's been a great thing for hockey in the Southwest. Austin Matthews came out of there. Arizona mm-hmm. State Hockey built a program.
Yep.
And they're a top 20 caliber team mm-hmm. So it's been good for the sport to have a team down there. I didn't think it would way back when they did all the expansion down south. I think this is just a way for them to get a better deal since it's a year-to-year lease, and now they want to hold their feet to the fire. Because again, where are you going to go? Veterans Memorial Coliseum. I didn't even know it's still standing. The Suns played there when I got into sports in the mid '70s. I can't believe it's still there. So, and again, like you said, Eric, you can't replace those dates. You could fill in concerts around a 40-game NHL schedule, which you have months in advance, which you have now. Today. It's out. So, yeah, that's what I think it is. I think it's just the city being a little coy. But again, it's interesting because it's a different dynamic. The city wants the team out, at least on the surface of it.
And the warm climate argument doesn't wash. We heard that about teams in Florida, and I think Tampa Bay is doing quite well, thank you. A lot of people we know have moved to Arizona because it's not humid. It's 150. My head's in an oven, but it's not humid. Okay, I give you that. But I don't buy that warm weather argument. There are cities, there was one, Seattle, that could have grabbed that team in a heartbeat, and instead they got the expansion. I still think Quebec City is a wonderful place that deserves a team. But as somebody who went into Le Colisée, that place scared me. It looked like it was crumbling before my eyes with an American Hockey League franchise there. But we just want to see some stability there and see somebody step it up. And you've got another new owner. Remember, Wayne Gretzky was involved in the Coyotes at one point. The league had stepped in. But there's a good fan base, and as Ashley said, they draw very well. I hope it stays. I mean, we can't keep putting all these teams in the East, and there's nothing wrong with an 8th team in Canada, as far as I'm concerned. I know Hamilton, Ontario had been mentioned for years. They built an arena before they got the team. And then a city called Toronto said, that's our market. That's our market. And so here they are sitting with like an OHL team in a beautiful 15,000-seat arena. But let's hope it works out. Sean, I knew you would have some very good comments considering your Oakland situation. Maybe there's a parallel here.
Yeah, I'm tired. I feel bad for fans of these cities that they lose it. You know, you got billionaires arguing with billionaires and millionaires and everything, and the fans get left short. And yeah, they could go somewhere else. Quebec could be an awesome place if they had a venue. I mean, think about it. A few years ago, the Islanders were almost gone out of the island, and now they've been to the Cup semifinals 2 years in a row. You just hate to see that. I'm big on tradition in sports. It's a big part of my fandom. So I hate to see teams move. Yeah, you guys know how I feel about my A's leaving Oakland. It bothers me. The Raiders not being there bothers me too. So it strikes a special chord to me when this happens. So yeah, I'd like to see it work out. I think it will. There's just too much to lose. Do you want to give up everything as part of a negotiation on a financial contract? I don't think so. I think they'll figure it out.
Yeah, and I think so too. It sounds, from everything I read, it sounds like Gary Bettman's not worried. So we probably shouldn't be. You know what I mean? If the commissioner of the NHL is not worried that things won't work out, then my guess is he's got some sort of insight. But guys, did you read about their potential? I think back in July, there were articles out about how they were interested in moving to Tempe, Arizona, and they were going to build a facility based on in the East Valley. They wanted some sort of entertainment, sports facility, whatever. So they put in this request for proposal. Come to find out, you're building on a landfill. And apparently that costs a lot more money because of the contamination and everything that you would have to do, whatever. So $70 million is the forecast, but they're talking about how it may now cost much, much more than that. And that thing blew up pretty quickly. But it just, the whole situation reeks, pun intended. It's just like, it's a total dumpster fire. It's terrible.
And they also had a deal. They were working with one of the colleges, in fact, of putting an arena similar to what happened in Columbus, which is very interesting because the city of Columbus already had a major arena that Ohio State used. And then suddenly the NHL team came in and they got an arena. We were in Columbus for a conference once, and the city of Columbus is not New York, and yet there's 2 arenas there. Yeah. One just the pro hockey, one just Ohio State basketball.
The Blue Jackets arena is beautiful.
Yeah, it's a tough part about, being in the Coyote situation is you can't put an arena up like that. It's not an overnight thing. It takes well over a year. They're going to have to come to the table again, unless they want to go somewhere else. Maybe, and you know what? The league could always step in. The league could get a sour view on Glendale and say, hey, we'll relocate you for now to wherever, find a place, put them down in, I don't know, Put them wherever. Share an arena with Dallas. Do something. So they don't have. It's not for a lack of options, but it's just a crazy situation. It seemed to just come out of nowhere last week.
Put them in Oakland and name them the Golden Seals.
That's fine with me. When I first got introduced to hockey, I was out there, and the Golden Seals were there. Wayne Merrick, Joe Malash. I might be able to pull up a few other names. Ashley, that's how old I actually am. So yeah,
you're
send
right,
them
though.
back. No one's using the Oakland arena. The Warriors went across the bay.
It's too late now to build an arena anywhere. So you're either going to something that already exists in your city, or that you already are playing in, or you're going to a different city that has an arena that already exists. So there are options, but if you're not playing in your home arena, then they're going to have a short period of time to figure out where they're going to play next season.
All right, last question then. Do you do what the Rays try to do with Montreal, is tease and say, okay, you think you're going to be fine? All right, we're going to drift to another city and play games there and see what happens if they want to keep us. That doesn't work here, does it?
No, it's a waste of time.
That idea is moronic. It's just, if you're going to move.
Yep.
Right?
Yes.
You have to ingratiate yourself to a fan base. You can't be half and half, because then no one's going to root for you.
Right. Yeah, I mean, Tampa Bay, you're going to alienate the dozens and dozens of loyal fans you have down there. For the Rays to go up to Montreal, you're going to end up with less fans than the LA Chargers have. So yeah, you can't do that. If you're going to go up to Montreal, which actually wasn't a bad place. I've been to Olympic Stadium a lot of times, going to college there an hour south. It's a morgue, but it's cavernous, but not a bad ballpark. I always had a good time up there.
Well, thanks, you guys. Great discussion on that.
Yeah.
All right. Well, on that note, it sounds like we're time to move to our across the board segments.
Yeah.
My favorite part of the show. Let's see who wants to lead it off. How about the Ursay follower with the Cole hat on? Why don't you go, Eric?
All right. I've got a new monthly feature. I'll do this once a month on the whiteboard. Okay. It's going to be called By the Numbers. So today we're going to buy 19. All right.
B-U-Y.
B-U-Y is correct.
B-U-Y.
Okay. And let's be honest here. It's time to give some love to the number 19, because it's not number 19's fault that COVID is named COVID-19. So today you're going to get some love, 19. I'm going to give you my choice for the top 3 all-time players, brief comment on each, who wore number 19. Number 3, Tony Gwynn, 8-time batting champ, 15-time All-Star, 5 Gold Gloves, 7 Silver Slugger, Baseball Hall of Fame. Ted Williams said one of the best hitters he ever saw. That's a pretty good comment. Mm-hmm. And without a doubt, the greatest player in the franchise history of the San Diego Padres. Played from 82 to 01, and I was at the park the day he got his 3,000th hit. Number 2, Steve Yzerman, 3-time Stanley Cup champ, 10-time All-Star, Hockey Hall of Famer, second best player in the history of the Detroit Red Wings long franchise, only behind, of course, the immortal Gordie Howe. Yzerman played from 83 to 06. Which brings us to number 1, Johnny Unitas, thus the hat. I don't think that's a horseshoe. I think it was U for Johnny Unitas. Now, before Peyton's Colts, there were Unitas's Colts. 4-time NFL champ. One of those was a Super Bowl title. 10-time Pro Bowl. 3-time MVP. 5-time first-team All-Pro. Pro Football Hall of Famer. 56 to 73. Ask people in Baltimore, other than Brooks Robinson, and they'll say Johnny U. Now, that leaves me to one more comment, and that is, who is the best active? Number 19, no question to me, Joey Votto of the Cincinnati Reds. He just recently became only the second player in baseball history to get his 2,000th hit, 300th homer, 1,000th RBI in the same season. Only Billy Williams of the Cubbies did that. And this year, he was one shy of the league record of 8 straight games with a homer. A lot more to say, but 2007 to today. So today I'm buying in on the number 19. And so, folks, I now defer to you to see you two who you would like to give hugs to the lovely number 19.
Go ahead, Sean.
Go ahead. Oh, me? Okay. Eric, you got 2 of mine. Mm-hmm. Yzerman, to me, is one of my favorite hockey players ever. Mm-hmm. he's a guy that I think was a little underrated through most of his career because he played in the same era as Gretzky and Lemieux. And then he finally won a few cups in Detroit, and I was very happy for him, and now an executive. He was just a great all-around player who could score big goals, classy. You just had a feeling as a captain he was just a great leader in the room for the Red Wings. Johnny Unitas for sure. How about Bob Feller? Cleveland in his career that he had for the Indians. He strikeout king. And you talk about number 19. You talk about hockey. You see on the list of great players that worn that, Joe Sakic and Brian Trottier too. It's a magical number on the ice, I think. But Stevie Yzerman for me is tops there.
Yeah, guys, you got two of mine. So I'm going to go with guys that I had the chance to see, only because everything else is based on what I hear. So like I have friends who from Cleveland, biggest Bernie Kosar fans ever. So I get it. But for me, Tony Gwynn is an all-time great, and he's probably he may be one for me, only because he's one of the greatest 19s that I ever had the chance to see play. But both of the hockey guys that you mentioned, Yzer and Sakic, Joe Sakic was one of the first guys that I really remember being emblazoned into my mind as a young hockey fan growing up. Like he was one of the guys that you always watched and was just kind of like one of the reasons, many reasons that I really got into hockey as a young kid was because of guys like Joe Sakic. And Steve Yzerman, you said it, he's one of the greatest players you've ever seen. He's one of the greatest players I've ever seen. And he just, to me, like you think of the Detroit Red Wings, I think of Steve Yzerman. So it's one of the greatest teams of my lifetime growing up, of that decade. And he was one of the greatest players of that team. So for me, it's Gwynn, Yzerman, and Sakic on that list. But I can appreciate a Johnny Unitas. I just didn't see him play. So I'm going to go with people that I had the chance to see play.
All right. Moving along. Ashley.
Yes, indeed.
What's on your board?
1901.
Long time ago.
Well, luckily, none of us were around in 1901, but I found this very interesting. Tonight, I'm going to go back to the Yankees because I'm a Yankees fan and things just happen to be going well. So the Yankees have won 9 games in a row. And we talked last week, Eric, with Joe about how that Twin Series was really big because the Yankees now face the Braves for 2. And then they get your Oakland A's, Sean, for, I believe, a 4-game series. And this is like, you're finally playing teams that are worthy of, are really going to show whether or not you're a good team. Well, tonight, when the Yankees play the Braves, the Yanks are on a 9-game winning streak. The Braves are on a 9-game winning streak. The last time that this happened, this was mind-blowing. The last time that happened, that both teams in a Major League Baseball game had win streaks of 9 or more, 1901. 1901. It's only happened 3 times, and the last time was 1901. So tonight we're making a little bit of history in Atlanta with the Yankees and Braves. I just think it's really cool. I love just kind of random crazy facts like that. But yeah, I think more so we're just going to see in the next 6-7 days how good the Yankees really are. And if this 9-game winning streak is legit or kind of fluky. But 1901, I'm going to think about 1901 when I'm watching that game tonight. And also this game becomes a big Honorado household. Like we've never really had the Braves Yankees rivalry because they haven't played when it's mattered, as Chris and I have been dating and are now married. Chris is a huge Braves fan. Mm-hmm. So tonight will be the first time that this rivalry gets like a little bit feisty in our household because both teams are very good and we're now playing for something.
Yeah, the interesting thing, you go back to the trade deadline, the Yankees, Anthony Rizzo was a game changer for them. Joey Gallo with the Braves brought in Soler and Duvall and brought in some reinforcements there. And they're now both the teams that everybody thought they would be at the right time. Who knows? Maybe that'll end up being a World Series preview. If they can keep it going.
That'd be awesome.
I wonder who the teams were in 1901. I know the Phillies weren't.
I gotcha.
They were
Phillies,
awful.
I believe it's the Phillies and the Pirates.
The Phillies in 1901?
Yep. So September 7th, 1901, the Pirates had won 10 straight and the Phillies had won 9 straight.
Wow.
Good on the Phillies, Eric.
So Hannes Wagner must have been in that game. But yeah, the Braves, as we talked about, trade deadline, what a great job. In fact, as we're taping this, solar is hot. They saw an opening in that division and they just blew through it. Absolutely,
they're
just
blowing
blew
the doors off.
I mean, they could wind up with a lead that's the biggest lead in the National League the way they're playing. So this will be a very fun series to watch, no question.
Yeah. All right, my turn.
Your turn.
Well, I guess we're going to open the show with college football, and that's where I'm going to go to end it. College football to me. And when I first think of college football, I think of, Keith Jackson, Nelly. Loved Keith Jackson. He would make the goosebumps go on Saturdays, whether it was from Ann Arbor, Michigan, Gainesville, Florida, Auburn, Alabama, the Iron Bowl, wherever. I love college football for this reason. I'm a big NFL fan. If you don't know it, you will. The experience of college football to me, I used to go to a game a year around the country with friends of mine. The atmosphere, the tailgating, and you get tailgating at the NFL, but it's a little different with the alumni, and you see everybody coming back to the school, and the traditions. Texas A&M's 12th man, Chief Osceola opening up Florida State with the flaming spear going into midfield. I'm not a Florida State fan, but that is cool as hell. The Howard's Rock entrance for Clemson when they enter the stadium, they touch the rock and then take the field down after they take the buses around the stadium and they run down the ramp. How those guys don't take face plants going down that ramp, I'll never get on these Saturdays. But most of all, and this is my whiteboard, what I love most about college athletics, not just college football, it's Strike Up the Band. I love the bands. I love the fight songs. I might be the only nerd in the world that YouTube's fight songs from even rival schools. Michigan's is awesome. Notre Dame's is awesome. I detest Ohio State football, but man, you're watching the tuba player dot in the eye. I mean, that's cool as hell. Years ago, I mentioned before, I went to Nebraska and Notre Dame in 2000. I knew the tradition from talking to people was that the Notre Dame band lines up about a mile-ish or so, maybe half mile outside the stadium, and they march into the stands, into the stadium with the fans following behind them, and they're part of it. I was the only one wearing Husker red in that march. I wasn't gonna miss that, and the people they were incredibly classy and welcoming and everything. I wasn't gonna miss that experience, whether they were playing Navy, Nebraska, or Furman, who's Nebraska's opponent next week. So that was my favorite part. So, in that ode, strike up the bands, and especially to my friends in the Husker Nation, let's bring it home this week against Illinois. And unlike Eric, I'm not going to sing because that wouldn't be good for anybody.
Oh, good.
Actually, how was it for you going to Syracuse? And the experience
awesome. I mean, my athletic experience was awesome. I always think Syracuse football is nothing to write home about. We all know that. But back in the day, it was pretty awesome. And I always think I know they haven't been good in 10, 15 years, but the Donovan McNabb years were good. And if you I'll take it to my deathbed. If you make all-time great college or even NFL teams, Syracuse players are very close to the top, if not at the top, if we're starting to throw out all-time great names. So
number 44.
Yep. Listen, you got Marvin Harrison. We could go on and on and on. Larry Zonka, Marvin Harrison, Donovan McNabb. We could go forever. But the college experience for me was awesome. But I went there relishing every second of that. That's what I wanted to do. I was sure to go to every football game and every basketball game. So I loved every second of it. The bands, the quad, the tailgating. My parents would come out almost every game and we would tailgate in our apartment driveway and then go to games. So I loved every second of it. I know it's not, a Nebraska or a Michigan or whatever, but for what it was awesome.
I'll start on this and then a positive piece, but this is how emotional it is. Remember, you may recall a few years ago, the Auburn, Alabama story with the tree downtown. You recall that, and folks aren't aware. In a certain city, the tree was defamed and it was damaged. It was poisoned, okay? And they wanted to hang the person who did that on the tree. And even the other school and those fans found it offensive. That was the first time that Auburn and Alabama actually came together for anything at all. But that's how serious rivalries are. As you know, I've spent over 35 years in college athletics. And when I did that, I was having football. I always had football. So I never got to experience those except one time. I did get to go with a hockey trip, and we saw a game with Indiana at Wisconsin. And I said, I'll sit in the press box. They said, no, you got to go down and listen. And it is an amazing for a young, person who grew up in a small town to hear that noise and see the passion, and to go to downtown Madison, a phenomenal college town. I couldn't describe it any better. It was amazing, just amazing. So, when down the road, I hope that someday we'll be able to go see a game at Florida. We have a friend who works with the Gator Boosters, and he said there's an invite there. And now that we don't have to work college football, John, I can experience that passion. There's nothing better than to be in a sideline and be a part of it. And you two in the media, Ashley's been down there on the sidelines, but that tree story just gives you the idea of how serious this is. And to see Auburn and Alabama come together in something like that, absolutely amazing.
Yeah, for me on the list of things to do, because it's so close to home, is I want to get down to Michie Stadium at West Point.
Yep.
You talk about college experiences, you read up on some of the best places to see a game. That's always in the top 10. It's an hour and a half, hour and 45 south of me. It's definitely something I want to do. And for me, if I could do college again, I would want to go to a big school. I went to a small State University of New York school up in Plattsburgh, New York, which was great. But our tailgating for a big event there, it's a national title hockey team when I was there. But that tailgating was drinking a six-pack in the woods before you go into the arena, right? That's not quite going down to the Grove at Ole Miss football or anything like that. So, that's the one experience I wish I could have had. But you know what? Maybe I can live that out with my boys in the years to come. I already told my wife, once they're old enough to go to games, Nebraska plays at Rutgers every 4 years, and we're going to be there for every single one of them.
Yeah, so Chris has a cousin who they live in Tennessee. He went to Tennessee. He played football at Tennessee. They have season tickets there. They have a lake house about 30 minutes from Oxford, Mississippi. So when we went down to visit last time, we went to Oxford off season, middle of the summer, and still, what a cool experience. What a cool college town. I cannot wait. Unfortunately, because we work weekends, we don't get to experience that as like a fan. I can't wait for the point in my life when I can just go to games as a fan and experience the places like the Grove, and not only football, but like these are places that are baseball junkies. Like they draw 25,000 fans for a baseball game. Like I want to go see that baseball game. And same thing, the tailgating, students shotgunning beers when they hit a home run. Like it's wild. I can't wait to go just experience big time college athletics and not work it, but just be a part of it and take it all in. Like you said, Eric, like sit down in the stands and just enjoy every second, because there is nothing like college sports at any level. And I've always told I'm totally pro college sports. I love the NFL and I love the NBA, but I'll take college every day of the week.
In any level, that's a good point, because when Ithaca and Cortland, folks that are watching this, they're not familiar. They're two beautiful little communities in the Finger Lakes region of upstate New York. And when they play each other for the Cortiga Jug, it's amazing. They played in Yankee Stadium. They played in a big place and drew like 25,000 people.
Yeah, Giant Stadium.
It was MetLife Stadium, you're right. But the crowd that they got, what a statement that was. And Cortland dominates at their level, and Ithaca is well known for their broadcast communications, similar to Syracuse. David Muir, for example, went to Ithaca. But it's a good point, Ashley, is that it doesn't matter what level it is, because the passion is there when you can get that many people into an NFL stadium for that big game.
Yeah.
Yep.
Awesome. All right, guys. Well, we'll do this again next week. You're watching M&M&M Across the Board. We can be found on Apple, YouTube, Spotify, Twitter at MMMATB1. We will tweet out the link every week. You can go back and watch past episodes, which we hope you do. Comment, play along. If you've got any suggestions, we're open to it, right, guys? We'll take some topic suggestions. Anything you like, throw at us. But
you got it. We're a versatile group here.
Yeah.
All right. We'll have the Husker Band take us out. See you all next week.